No one ever said Captain L was a nice guy. I beat the crap out of fighters more than I have to. Some of them are even still DLC. I had idiot tutorials who liked to talk big, so I taught them a lesson and never come back to class. If I go to an online mode and the connection's bad, I make it a policy to stiffen with the servers. But even a bastard like me can spot true evil when he sees it. True evil are those who use a license for their own game and crush them under their programming when they're through. And that is exactly what you've done, isn't it? And your game gets to hide from the fans, the reviews, and the consequences. That's why I'll judge you myself. I hope you can tell from the name of this series, but I'm a fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, though it's worth disclaiming I've only been watching the anime. It's been going on for close to 30 years, so in that time it's had plenty of time to spin off games. However, because of the series' main Japanese-only release, most of the games have either stayed in the region or American copies are very rare. And even when it comes to emulation, English patches don't always exist. Luckily, the first game based on the series is old enough to be hacked, and that is Winkysoft's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the Super Famicom.
Winkysoft seems to be good at making RPGs because their resume consists mostly of Super Robot Wars. They had just declared bankruptcy a few months ago. Released in 1993, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is based on Part 3 of the manga, Stardust Crusaders. As expected, considering the game released towards the beginning of Diamond's Unbreakable run, which makes now a good time to review it. It was translated by Aeon Genesis in 2013, and so that's how I'm playing it. We're emulating this time, but if you're big on physical copies and understand Japanese, an original card is incredibly cheap, and the SNES isn't region locked. Translated reproduction cards have also shown up on eBay. JoJo's story is very difficult to explain. It's a bizarre adventure after all. So instead of taking a bunch of time to explain the plot up to this point, I'll just tell you to go watch the anime. If you're incredibly resistant to doing any prior research, the game starts with a 5-minute intro that covers everything the first episode does, which tells you everything relevant, but I wouldn't recommend playing this without full knowledge on Stardust Crusaders. More on that later. When you're not in battle, the gameplay is kind of like a point-and-click adventure game in this ultra-widescreen window. Open the window with the A button to check surroundings, open inventory, open menu, and tarot cards. If Avdal's in your party, he can use the tarot cards to tell what a certain character's lucky item is. Then you buy that item and equip it to make the character luckier. I don't really know. All of the environments are left and right with occasional switching planes up and down. With so little view, it's pretty easy to get lost and wander around, especially when towns have a bad tendency to look the same. No area is big, but it's tedious going through them. It's also worth exploring the hub worlds because there are items hidden in them. Most of the time it's healing items like ointments and supplements, and believe me when I say to stockpile them. Actually, getting items in the overworld is somewhat difficult for a few reasons, however. To collect them, you must open the menu, select Check, slowly move the cursor over a spot on the screen with no indication where there could be an item, and hope you're standing close enough to the spot you want to check because the cursor's range is very limited. Towns offer basically everything you expect. There's a weapon shop where you buy equipment to up a character's attack or defense. Each item is unique to one character and each town has a new better set. An item shop that sells HP and MP restores along with other things, and a Speedwagon Foundation Inn where you can save the game or rest to refill HP and MP, which cost a day of travel time. Holly has 50 days before her stand takes her life, and the game must be completed before that limit is up. It's pressure to not use the Speedwagon Foundation, and it's entirely and easily possible to beat the game without it, but don't panic if you need to use it. The game's generous with days, you'll only use about half of them on a run. Most towns also have a library that sell books, not rent, sell, which increase character stats. Don't bother, they're expensive and don't do enough individually. Since this is an RPG, the main focus is the battle system. Once again, there are 4 options: attack, talk, item, and check. Attack and item are self-explanatory. Select an opponent or party member to attack or heal. Talking is to affect MP. RPG fans know MP as magic points, but here it stands for what I like to call morale points. MP is basically a second health bar. Depleting either will cause the character to fall. MP is dropped by taunting and replenished by either using an item or talking to another party member. However, it's basically useless to use the command yourself, because enemies are usually immune to taunts, or if it does work, it does so little it'd be more productive to spend the turn attacking. Enemies will taunt, which will almost always work, but not enough to take you out, so it's not worth psyching party members up. If their MP does get low, use an item to bring it back, because you'll get enough of those from the environment to cover until the end of the game, when you'll be able to afford items that restore HP and MP. As you noticed by the way I skipped any explanation on the attack command, there's only one option. There's absolutely no elemental or weapon system in play, which does wonders in eliminating strategy. But attacking endlessly doesn't work, so that's what check does. Check means that a character won't do anything but scan the enemy for the turn, and either 1 or 2 turns later, depending on stats, they'll come up with a check. This opens a tactics menu with 2 new options, Idea and Guts. Every once in a while, Flee will also appear, but only in fights where you must flee to progress, so use it if it ever shows up. Guts is just stronger attacks as a reward for giving up turns checking, so use it if you have it. Idea is the real gimmick of battles if you know how it works. If you don't, you'll just see it fail most of the time. The way it works is almost every major enemy, the stand users that make up most fights, have either incredibly high defense or incredibly high evasion, which makes them almost impossible to beat as far as I'm aware, because it'll take so long to do damage and it costs too much to buy items to survive long enough. Using the correct character's idea on each major enemy will reduce their defense or evasion to normal levels. So, how do you know which character's idea to use outside of trial and error? Well, the game follows the manga, so if you know what a specific character did in the manga to fight a stand, you use their idea. For an early game example, Tower of Grey has high evasion, but Kakuin's idea corners him with Emerald Splash. And this is why I recommend you be familiar with Stardust Crusaders, because you'll need to know whose idea to use in which fight to not die. But even that's not foolproof, because the idea to use on Vanilla Ice is JoJo's, who wasn't there in the source material. The game also changes a lot from the manga, so who knows when an idea will be relevant. A fight against Mariah, but neither Joseph nor Avdol have anything to do. One more thing to mention about battles, each fight starts with Dio producing 5 cards and you must draw 1. Picking a card produces a random effect for the fight, such as lowering defense, changing biorhythm, whatever that means, or filling every party member's HP and MP. I never really noticed the effects outside of full restores, so it's not really much of a handicap. There's 3 nice things I can say about battles, at least. The first is that the game subverts the source material and other RPGs by not permanently removing party members from the game. It creates some inaccuracies, but I'd rather have that than losing party members and their valuable damage at the end of the game. The second is that most fights are against one enemy, and if there are more, they're a lot easier. Finally, there are no random battles whatsoever. Every single fight is scripted, which also means there's no grinding. Therefore, the developer should know exactly what level everyone's going to be at and plan the fights accordingly, right? Both of these positives come with catches. To balance 5 or 6 V1 fights, enemies get multiple attacks in a row per turn. Combine that with some enemies that can deal a lot of damage with one attack and the potential for them to concentrate all attacks on one party member, it's possible for them to take someone down in one turn, and revive items are expensive and usually not worth it because everyone gets automatically revived at the end of each fight. Yeah, this game has some real difficulty spikes, especially towards the middle and end. The fights right before getting Iggy and everything in Dio's mansion are incredibly hard without much of a way to counter it. And when I say Dio's mansion is hard, I mean I'm not sure it's possible without grinding hard. Luck can get you through most of it, but the final encounter with Vanilla Ice might be unbeatable. He can one-shot most of your party and he gets multiple attacks per turn. Instead of altering the fight, the developers put a bar near the mansion where you can pay to fight weak vampires. You get more money than you paid and a little experience, so it's somehow necessary to grind in a game without random battles. It takes a really long time to gain the 2 or 3 levels needed to finish the game, in a game that would have been refreshingly short without it. Do this grind before fighting Pet Shop outside the mansion if you want to enjoy yourself. I've complained about the gameplay enough, let's talk about the presentation. Because of the zoomed in view, sprites are really big and therefore very detailed, but colors seem to be wrong. Polnareff has blonde hair, Avdol has green hair, neither of these are present on the box art. Also, JoJo's coat is blue. I know that's the color it's traditionally been, but I prefer the black coat from the anime. The music sometimes isn't special, but overall the soundtrack is good. The battle theme in Dio's mansion, known as Fierce Battle, is amazing. Finally, this game is glitchy, so watch out. Don't skip the intro cutscene if it starts playing or the game freezes. Don't open the menu and then select a character or the game freezes. This would be more than just a footnote at the end of the review, but both of those are very easy to avoid, and this game is based on JoJo's, so I can claim it's the world's power.
This game is not very good. It's basic and mindless, it plays loose with the established story, it's clunky in an attempt to differentiate itself from Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, and it doesn't do anything cool to remind us why we love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so much. Thankfully, the series recovered after this with much better future games handled by Capcom and CyberConnect 2. And you know, in the end, I still kinda recommend this game to JoJo fans who need to kill time until Diamond is Unbreakable airs and haven't imported Eyes of Heaven. It's only about 6 hours long on an initial playthrough, it's easy to get a hold of no matter how you do it, and it's still JoJo, which automatically makes it worth something. Actually, I take it back. This game isn't worthy to have the JoJo name with such a minor pose in it. I have to make up for this myself.